Once again, it's Tio Loco, and I'm unsupervised and
off his meds.
Off my meds.
Yeah.
My story today comes out of New York, and it involves an Illinois company called American Smart Cities, and their CEO, Thomas Bowling, who is alleging in a complaint filed in New York that the Dormitory Authority of the State of New York, the Office of Cannabis Management, the CEO and president of the Dormitory Authority, another guy, this guy's name's Reuben McDaniel, and another guy, Emory Alexander, who was the liaison to McDaniel. That this company was hoodwinked, and the named defendants here were demanding kickbacks, and when they refused to do that, their work in New York was torpedoed. They lost their work in Illinois. Now, this company, what it does is it uses AI and cameras to monitor. Now, this is, 1984 shit, so those of you who don't believe this is happening, you should read about this. What they do is they call it pole work, and this is not strippers. Hey, Rico, you have to go visit some pole work one of these days. But this is not that kind of pole work. They put up cameras on poles, and they put up cameras in other secure areas in the city of Illinois. The state of Illinois. They're making a bunch of money there. And they were approached by this guy, Alexander, who claimed that he was the spokesman for McDaniel, and that McDaniel was able to give no-bid contracts in New York. And they wanted to come in and put up poles around universities with the State University of New York, the City University of New York, and also to do like 300 cannabis companies and put their cameras in and use their patented AI material and, their intellectual property to be able to have safe spaces on universities and to provide camera security for cannabis businesses. Here in California, we have to have them, so that seems like it's straightforward. But the part that gets a little sketchy is the claim that they were offered no-bid contracts for this. And the quid pro quo, at least as is alleged in this complaint, is that we want to have money, we want to have employment, we want to have ownership. And the allegation is that when these bureaucrats realized they weren't going to get shit from this company, they jerked the contract. Now, the contract was filed the complaint was filed in New York, but the two named defendants, one's from Arkansas, and I can't remember where the other one's from, but they're not from the state of New York, which makes you wonder how in the hell these guys have such positions in the state of New York if they don't live there. But that's a whole nother argument to make. These two guys, they removed it to federal court. Now, what that means is that this state case about, kickbacks and fraudulent representations and things like that in the state of New York is going to have to go to the federal level. And I'm not sure what that's going to mean for this case. And the petition to remove pointed out that all these allegations have been looked at internally by investigators in the state of New York, and they found them to be groundless. Now, that seems like just a shot back that you're pissing up a rope here, but I don't know where this is actually going to go, because these are only allegations. But as I was reading this, I'm thinking, well, I've met with a few people who claim to be officials or affiliated with officials, and they wanted jobs and they wanted consulting contracts, and so it didn't surprise me a bit. But I want to point out these are only allegations, and they haven't been answered yet. The petition to remove was not an answer to the complaint. Now, this is a verified complaint, which means this guy Bowling claimed all this he put in here was true, which means it limits the way you can respond. Now, one of the things that jumped out at me, and this may be a little geeky, is that American Smart Cities Incorporated is an Illinois corporation. This guy Bowling is their CEO. Now, in small claims court, you can send a representative for your business that isn't an attorney. But since the 1880s, the federal government has recognized a corporation as a person. If you're going to appear in court for a person, you need to have a license to practice law. So that was one thing that jumped out at me. Like, how in the hell is this guy able to file a complaint on behalf of a company? He may own it, basically own all the shares, be the director, and blah, blah, blah. But he filed on behalf of this corporation. So I think he's going to have to get himself an attorney here at some point. And I don't know if that's going to change the calculus. Now, what they're asking for is $300 million from the Dormitory Authority, the Office of Cannabis Management, and these two individuals. I want to emphasize again, this is just an allegation. But for anybody who's done any work around government, you know that these parasites exist all over the place that want to come in and help you get something from the government, but there's a quid pro quo they want to keep kind of silent. I'm not saying that's what happened here, because I don't know, these are mere allegations, but this is another one of the scenes from the shit show going on in the state of New York right now. And I hope it's not true, and if it is, I hope they get the shit slapped out of them. And I'd like to see a couple of people go to jail if this is true. But again, I emphasize these are only allegations. I'm going to throw this back at you all to get your input on what seems like kind of a slimy set of circumstances coming out of New York. And I hope this isn't true, but man, if it is, I did 5 years for trying to give sick people weed. What would these people get for milking somebody out of millions of dollars? Back at you guys, what do you think?
I'll tell you what they're going to get, Dale. They're going to get a promotion because it's New York. That's what they're going to get for milking all this money. That's right. They show that they can do it, now that they can be effective and whatnot, and that they can get the money and get away with it. And they're just probably going to get a lot of cover. And we covered this story initially, I believe, on Monday. And so it's fantastic to have your legal opinion on all of this, Dale.
And we do love slapping the shit out of
I mean, it is business as usual up there. I mean, there's two ongoing federal corruption cases in New Jersey right now, and I mean, I listened to an interesting podcast about those cases last night, and one point that they made is that this business as usual, as it's existed in New York and New Jersey and a lot of these states, is completely independent of party. Right now, yes, they are both Democratic strongholds, but Republicans have had
party bosses,
an equal number of party bosses building local political machines, and heavy corruption on both sides of the aisle for a very long time. So, I mean, Dale's right. These are allegations. We don't know for sure whether they're true or not, but unfortunately, based off of history, they're very believable.
Exactly.
Yeah. Was it Tammany Hall? Were you listening to?
What's that, Dale?
Well, this goes back to Boss Tweed and Tammany Hall, the corruption in the state of New York. Mm-hmm. And it exists in government everywhere, basically. California struggles with overtax and overregulation. New York struggles with having your pockets picked by politicians and their fellow travelers. Mm-hmm. Oh, none of this is making this industry any easier to be successful in, and it's just a shame. I hope that somebody steps in here and spanks some people, but you know, the problem is this is like a waterfall. You know, how do you stop the waterfall without cutting off the entire river? And I don't know how they do this. The corruption seems to be so entrenched in some of these states. It's just hard to watch, especially as your friends and colleagues go under, trying to compete in these states, and watching the slime go on all around you.
Yeah, and I mean, I think maybe as an emerging industry that has a lot of opposition to it, engaging in these corrupt practices, we're always going to have a bigger target on our back than maybe what would otherwise be tolerated.
I mean, I think it's easier to get away with in our sector. I think it's happening in all sectors of government. I mean, look, we have it happen in Las Vegas. We've had it happen in California. We have a governor standing there talking about water conservation while owning interest in a cultivation on the watershed in Mendo. I mean, I think that if you look and follow the money, that it's happening kind of everywhere. It's maybe a little easier to squeeze by here because we're new and everyone's focusing on how do we regulate, how do we do this, how do we throw these programs into place quickly. And so maybe there's not quite the system of checks and balances there need to be to shut some of these things down more quickly.
Yeah, also too, I mean,
and a door fell off a Boeing airliner, and you wonder who got paid to allow them to self-regulate that kind of shit before somebody got sucked out of a window and got killed.
Yep.
And even then, they pay a fine and no one goes to jail over this kind of stuff. You're right, Jenny Beth. This is all over the place, and it's unfortunately American politics, and it's kind of nauseating. People should all smoke a joint to deal with the nausea from this crap.
Or since it's 7:10, maybe take a dab of oil.
There it is.
There you go. Today's my oldest son's birthday, 47.
Today's your oldest son's birthday. What's his name, Dale?
Birthday.
Name's Jeremy.
Jeremy. Happy
Owns a
birthday,
music
Jeremy.
store
Yes.
in Garden Valley. In Grass Valley, California. He's a musician, owns a music store. Shout out to my boy.
Yes. And Sohum, what was that podcast that you had referenced earlier that you said you were watching? So that way, if people want to check that out, they can reference that.
Let me tell you. Yeah, it was.
Was it called Today Explained?
Was it Today Explained?
I think it was Today Explained. Yeah.
Okay.
It was. Yeah. It was. Yeah, that was right. It was either that one or there was a Wall Street Journal one that always pops up in my Spotify. But I think you're right. It was Today Explained.
Today Explained. Make sure you go and check them out.
It goes back to like the days of those of you out there, Boardwalk Empire fans.
Yeah.
Like how that shit was broken down. Right?
Nucky Johnson was his real name.
Oh yeah. Boardwalk Empire was amazing.
It's a great show.
That was a great show. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like pretty much it just goes to show, man. Like this whole corruption shit. Like it's ingrained in American politics.
It's American. Corruption is American.
It's what the house is built on.
That's right.
It's what the house is built on.
Yes.
I mean,
really.
And Citizens United just kind of blew a top off of it, but it's always been around.
Oh boy, we're not going into that. We're going to go right into a commercial and we're going to be right back.